All right. So here we are again with another training, and this one is super important for the time that we are in now. So, if you're just now tuning in, this is workspacepark, and we are so glad to be here. And today we have Channing Clark. Channing is going to come to us and talk about maintaining mental stability in the workplace. Something that is super important, not just in the situation, in the current situation we're in now, but also in, as you grow in business, as you grow in your careers, as businesses grow, just being able to take care of ourselves mentally. So I am going to allow Channing to talk a little bit about herself and we'll jump right on in. So Channing, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to this place of teaching people about mental health?
All right, thank you. So, again, my name is Channing Clark, and I'm the owner and clinical director of Restore You Counseling and Consultation. I've been in the mental health field for over 10 years now. Yeah, so my heart, my passion is for helping others to deal with what we're talking about now, that mental stability when crises happen. How do we respond and how do we prepare ourselves to deal with the daily, everyday, and the out of the blue challenges that come up for us? So that's who I am. I primarily work with women and families, but I'm here today to talk to everyone about their mental health and what to do in the world that we're living in right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Again, we try to curate trainings that speak directly to the people that we serve, right? And our subscribers,
Hmm.
you know, different walks of life and different industries, but one thing that is the foundation for all of it is our mental health. So I'm gonna jump right on in. How
Okay.
how do you maintain mental stability where there is so much going on in the world?
Good question. Good question. And I think it boils down to two things. One is increased awareness and intentional behaviors. So, when I say that, what I mean is being able to kind of check in with yourself when you talk about mental stability. What does that look like for you? And being aware of how do I know when I am in a healthy state mentally? So, questions could be, what do I feel like when I'm well? What types of situations or events increase my stress? What types of situations or events decrease my stress? So when you're aware of what you recognize, and some of those signs could be you have trouble with sleeping when you're feeling stressed. Is that an impact? Do your eating habits change? Have they changed? Do you communicate with family less often than you typically do? Your mood in general, are you a little more irritable? Have people pointed out, hey, I notice you're a little more snappy than what you have been in the past? And so being aware, self-aware about what does that look like for you when you are mentally stable and when maybe you're not so stable is the most important piece, because when you're able to pick up those things as personally, it'll help you to go to that next step, which is those intentional behaviors. So being able to identify what are some things that I need to do for myself to get back to that place of mental stability.
Wow, those are so good. It just takes some time of asking yourself those questions, right? And sometimes those
Right.
questions need a little
Mhm.
bit of thought. Like,
Mhm.
if I'm being irritable or a little bit snappy, there could be a root
Mhm.
to that. Or
Exactly.
eating more, I'm doing things. So just taking some check in with yourself. I think those are powerful. Um,
Yeah.
Now, everyone is online. It's funny.
Yes.
I have been using Zoom for 5 years.
Mhm.
And now my children are on Zoom and my dad is on Zoom. And, it's just everyone is Zoom, Zoom, Zoom. But there is this thing called Zoom fatigue.
Yes. Yes, yes. And we're all in that boat together. I do sessions on Zoom. So for hours, I'm back to back meeting with people on Zoom. So, yes, we are all going through this together. And I like how you mentioned even the kids as well. And I think a lot of times we don't even acknowledge some of the stress that that puts on children also.
Oh, yes.
This
They're
new
not used
platform.
to. They are not used to being online all the time.
Mhm.
I am a nap person. I allow my kids to take a nap now, and I know maybe
Mhm.
people wouldn't do that, but Zoom fatigue is real. So,
It
do
is.
you have any tips or ways that we can handle Zoom fatigue?
Sure, sure. I think there are quite a few things. I think one, like you're talking about, being able to acknowledge that, hey, this is something that's new and different for yourself or for the people around you, and making some accommodations. So, maybe it is that, hey, you or your children need to take a break or take a nap, do something different. I saw this really cool video on Facebook where they actually had a kid who was on a bike, but it was stationary while they were doing their class. And I just thought that is just such a wonderful idea, getting creative in allowing some accommodations or doing something a little differently, due to the fact that, hey, uh, Zoom fatigue is real and it happens. It's happening to all of us. And so, getting creative in how you do things and even your expectations when it comes to yourself and your children with the workload and the continuously being on camera. So there are a few other things, because even for adults, when you have meetings and the different Zoom meetings, things like that, um, when we're in person, we pick up on different social cues, nonverbal cues, and things of that nature. But it's difficult to do when you're sitting in a camera, and especially when you have a camera that's looking at you. So you're looking at yourself,
Right.
and then you're also trying to pay attention to the other people in the meeting. And so that can be a lot for our minds, just for us to be able to take in. So one suggestion is doing like the speaker views, being intentional about kind of having it where the focus is just on the person who's presenting, to help so that you're not really distracted with the other people that are there, or even looking at yourself. So that's one option. Or if you do have the option, not doing video, sometimes being able to take a break, or maybe that means taking time away from even like screen time. So being a little more intentional about getting out and doing things a little differently. I like how you mentioned the nap, right? So that's something as well. Maybe now that things have changed and you're on your computer a little more often, it means that you need to change up things, take breaks in between meetings, take a nap, go outside. Just little things that you can do a little differently to acknowledge that, hey, this is something that's new, that's different, and it's putting sort of a strain on you. Even our eyes, it can cause a strain. I know when I went to the eye doctor, they even told me to look outside every like 5 to 10 minutes, just so that your eyes can get a break from looking at the screen. So if it impacts our eyes, it definitely impacts our mind and our body. So
Right. Yeah.
yes, yes.
No, those
So
are all really good.
mhm,
Because we do need the break. I need to be more intentional
mhm.
about just not having screen time because we go from Zoom meetings to our phones, the
Yeah.
TV, you know. So
Mhm.
my daughter has a teacher who suggested creating different seating areas in the house. I have not,
Yes.
yeah, but I thought about doing this for myself too. Maybe buying a few beanbag chairs or a
Mhm.
ball kind of seat, so you
Mhm.
have different spaces in your area instead of just sitting at your desk. So that's
Mhm.
something we're going to try to incorporate. Some movement.
Mhm.
You know, we need movement. It's good.
Yeah, movement. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone seems a little overwhelmed too, right? So I'm mentioning my kids because that's the kind of the life I live. I'm
Right.
working and now my kids are home as well. And it's so much pressure to, still be productive. And I have a lot of stress right now. So, how do you relieve stress when you do have a lot of pressure from both work and home? What are some ways or tips that you can provide us?
Okay, no problem. So I think that when it comes to having a lot of stress, like I mentioned, being intentional about how you respond, being aware of what are those warning signs for you that you have an increased stress level for yourself. But on top of that, there are other things you can do that are simple you can incorporate in. Even when we talk about taking breaks from like the video and in between doing these different things. So a simple thing like getting up to stretch can make a difference to help to kind of refresh and get started for the next task or whatever it is you need to do next. They have all sorts of breathing apps where they do the guided breathing, and you can actually schedule or set an alarm so that periodically through the day you can get a reminder, hey, let me take, it only takes like 2 minutes, let me take 2 minutes and do some breathing. That helps to reduce stress. It helps again to kind of reset your mind to be able to focus on the next thing that you have to do. And it also allows a moment to be able to do some of that self awareness, to check in with yourself to see, okay, I did that breathing. How am I feeling right now? What do I need right now in this moment? Because a lot of times we just kind of go from one thing to the next and don't really take the time to assess what is it that I need in this moment so that I can be productive with work. I
Right.
can be effective in the work that I do. Because a lot of times when you are feeling stressed and you're feeling overwhelmed, even though you're doing work, you're not necessarily productive. It can take longer for you to do a task that didn't really take that long because you didn't take the time to take a break to refresh and to, like I said, just a few minutes of doing some guided deep breathing, which can make a huge difference. And I also like what you mentioned about starting to set up in these different spaces. Because even for some people, their office is maybe in their bedroom or it's in their living room, which it causes this change where everything is combined in one. So how do you separate the two? So I like that idea, and I encourage people to do that too. If you're able to have a separate space that says this is the work area, and from your home life. For some people, that may mean packing up some things and putting it to the side so that it looks different. It's a different space or environment. For some people, it could be changing your environment. So maybe you go outside for a few minutes to separate. Hey, I'm finished with work. I'm going outside or go for a drive or something like that to be able to set the difference between, hey, I'm at work and now I'm at home and I can rest and get the break that I need.
That's good. No, I think
Mhm.
separating it out for the day. As you're talking, I'm thinking
Mhm.
like, what can we do in our house? Because everything is now centered around the home, and the
Yeah.
gets blurred, right? Um,
Mhm.
so yes. What are
Mhm.
ways to cope with stress? So we talked a little bit about ways to kind of relieve it, but what are some ways that we can actually cope with it? Because fortunately, stress is just a part of our lives.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's a part of our lives. And I think this brings into play something that I like to call mental health maintenance.
Yes. What
And
is that? What is mental health maintenance? I've never heard that term.
mental health maintenance. So this is where I got the idea from. So when I was in college, I had my first car, and my car broke down on the Bay Bridge here in Maryland. And it's a big bridge. There was construction. It was only one lane, and there I was stuck on the on the Bay Bridge with my car broken down, smoke coming from the hood. I had no clue what was going on. So I was
Horns
able
are
to make it off.
beeping.
Huh?
Horns are beeping.
Yes, yes, horns are beeping. I'm freaking out. Talk about stress, right? So, um, so I finally made it somehow. I made it off of the bridge. My dad, he likes to work on cars and things like that. So he came and I was like, Dad, I don't know what happened. And he's like, Channing, did you ever get an oil change? And the answer was no. I had no clue that cars needed oil changes. I thought you just put gas in the car and that was it.
Oh
And so
no.
yes, yes. And so, the warning sign was there. It was up there on the dashboard, but I had no clue. And I ended up breaking down. And, even looking at that story, it reminds me of our mental health. A lot of times we have those warning signs that come up. And, just like the car, it gave me a little grace. I went longer than I probably should have without oil. And the same thing with our minds and our bodies. Sometimes it allows us a little grace to be able to keep going until it breaks down. And so that's where it comes into play, that awareness about, hey, where am I? How am I feeling? being able to check in and be intentional about what you're doing. Because the idea is that we all have sort of this window of tolerance. Stress isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it can be a motivator to get things done. Sometimes it can push us, but also there's sort of this line that can be crossed where it turns over to having this negative impact on us. And so when you take the time to do that maintenance, like we do with our car, we do that check in to see where we are, that helps us to be able to manage stress and recognize when that stress is crossing a line where we're moving towards a place where we may kind of break down in a sense. So I like to look at it as like we have emotional deposits and then we have emotional withdrawals. So it's sort of like when you look at a bank account, your account is constantly moving where you have these deposits and then you have withdrawals. So the same thing happens to us emotionally, where we have things that pull from us emotionally and physically, and things that deposit or pour into us emotionally. And so when you talk about mental health maintenance, it's about managing that emotional account where you're able to see, hey, is there a little more stressors that are come into play in my life right now? And if that is the case, how can I get a little more balance in my emotional account where I may be being a little more intentional about the types of deposits that I use and what I put into play? Because like we're talking about, if now you're working from home and that's something that's new and different and a challenge, that is an emotional withdrawal that's being taken from you. And then you add on top of it your child going through that process. That's an emotional withdrawal that's being taken away from you. And it doesn't just have to be with working from home. It comes into play, grieving the loss of someone close to you, or grieving the loss of, a celebrity, grieving the loss of, just what's happening in the world. That takes an emotional toll and it takes a withdrawal from us. And so being mindful of those things, as well as being intentional, recognizing that, hey, these emotional deposits are coming out. I need to make sure that I have these these emotional withdrawals are coming out. I need to be intentional about making sure that I'm getting the emotional deposits that I need to be able to maintain my mental health. So that is sort of what the idea of mental health maintenance. It's again going back to that awareness and being intentional about taking the steps you need to be able to maintain where you are emotionally and mentally.
Awesome. That's a great analogy.
Mhm.
I was thinking of a car like in the dashboard, and when it says you need different things, and
Mhm.
you know, our bodies do that, right? Like
They do.
migraine, a consistent migraine could mean I'm not drinking enough water, I'm not sleeping enough.
Yep.
So that's a
Mhm.
great analogy. I've never really looked at it like that.
Mhm.
And I don't think that, and I can be transparent on this, I don't think I'm doing a good job about those deposits in my life because there have been so many
Mhm.
withdrawals into trying to like
Mhm.
survive and juggle all the hats.
Mhm.
I don't think that I have done a good job about trying to put more deposits in. So that was really good. I'm going to take away that
Yeah.
as well.
And
Um,
I created a workbook which actually helps to where you can write out sort of what are your emotional deposits, what are your withdrawals, and establish a plan. How do you tackle those different things so that you can get back to that balance that you need? But yeah, and I think also when you talk about like the awareness, being able to become aware of it, a lot of times we just want to go and just keep moving and keep going. But when you really sit back and, like you're saying, take the time to assess, hey, what has come out of me even in this day? And you acknowledge that, it gives you permission to give yourself some grace and maybe not push yourself to those limits as you may be able to do before. So as transitions happen, we should be able to acknowledge, hey, we're in a transition. I may not be able to operate to the same degree that I have in the past because I'm able to acknowledge that there's something different that's happened. There are more withdrawals that are happening now. So I'm not operating with the same level of energy or the same emotional or mental strength that I've had before. So it's not anything with me, but it's just, hey, with everything happening, I'm just not able to do what I did before. And so being intentional about working towards getting yourself to a place to be able to get back to that you that was able to handle and tackle all these other things.
Yeah, I think that puts you in a vulnerable place, right? To say that
Mm,
I cannot work at the capacity that I used to.
mm,
I
mm,
think that especially as you get older and as you have more responsibilities on your plate, as you grow in a career, being able to
mm,
say that puts you in a very vulnerable place. And I'm sure it's really hard for people. That's why we want to make sure that we hold space for people on these um, calls and these interviews, because we want to let people know it's not,
mm.
you're not alone in feeling this.
And
A lot of people
yeah.
are feeling this. No matter,
Hmm.
these feelings didn't just happen because of the current situation we're in. These feelings people have
Right.
for a while. So, but what are some
Hmm.
options to access mental health services? So we've talked about mental health services, and you mentioned your workbook, but what are ways to access mental health services?
So there are quite a few different options. First one I would say is if you're employed, checking with your company, your organization to see if they have an employee assistance program.
Right.
Um, yeah, so you can check with your resource director or whoever it may be. It's a great option. Different employee assistance programs offer different types of services. Some could be like financial, but they typically have mental health as well as substance abuse supports available. So if your company does have that, what you can do, you get the number to the company, it's confidential, and they can set you up with a mental health therapist or a substance abuse program. And they typically give you a few, like maybe 6 to 8 sessions for free
Oh, wow.
that you can use. Yeah, so it's based off of whatever the concern or issue is. You get about 6 to 8 sessions about that specific topic. And then after that's finished, you can either use your insurance or you can pay out of pocket or whatever you want to do with that same therapist or go to another therapist if the issue hasn't been resolved. So that's a great resource that a lot of people don't really know. And I think, especially with how things are happening now, it may not be communicated as often, but that is definitely a resource that you can look into if you're interested in mental health services. The other option is with checking with your insurance carrier. A lot of times people have mental health benefits or coverage, and they don't even know that it's there.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so it could possibly be, paid for partially or in full through your health insurance. So you have the option to do that and go through your health insurance. And when it comes to using your health insurance, there are some therapists who are connected with specific insurance companies.
Oh,
So let's say a popular website is Psychology Today, where you can go to look up therapists. And for some people, it could be maybe your native language. You want to see a therapist that speaks your native language because that makes you feel a little more comfortable. Or there's a specific issue that you're struggling with, and you want a therapist who specializes in that. So let's just say you go to Psychology Today, you find that perfect therapist that fits the criteria that you're looking for, but then they don't have your insurance. It
right.
doesn't necessarily mean that you can't see that therapist. I always encourage, usually therapists offer like a consultation, a free consultation, or you can at least call to get information about the insurance, because sometimes um, you can get reimbursed by your insurance company to see a therapist that isn't necessarily in your network, or you can pay out of pocket for it. Some therapists offer sliding scale depending on how much money you make. So you should still explore your options even in that regard. Um, I know in the state of Maryland, the other option is we have the Pro Bono Counseling Project, which is an organization that has therapists who offer free counseling sessions. And it's similar to the employee assistance program, where I think you're limited to about like 6 to 8 sessions that you get for free. But they're also a great source. You can sign up, it's based on your income, and you can get services from there. And the last option that I'm aware of is SAMHSA. So that's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. They have a national helpline where you can get free and confidential advice on mental health services as well as substance abuse services in your area. So they can help to guide you if you can't go through EAP or your health insurance company and you need to get engaged with some services. So I think that pretty much covers what the different options are when it comes to accessing mental health.
No, those are a lot of great options. I think,
Mhm.
we hear about the benefits at work, but then, you gloss over it and you never go back.
Yeah.
I think now, especially, is a good time for people to get to start looking into it.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
last question: can you provide any a few practices people can do when they are feeling pressure, or overwhelm at work? We kind of talked a little bit about this, but if you leave us with
Mhm.
any additional practices or tips when you are feeling overwhelmed?
Sure, sure. I think one main one is being able to allow those feelings a space to go. So you may feel them, but a lot of times you can just kind of try to avoid them or just push through them. But allowing them a space to live out that emotion is actually something that can help you to move faster or move through that emotion a little faster. So there are different ways that you can do that. One of my favorites is journaling, where you can sort of just write out your thoughts. It actually helps you to kind of problem solve maybe some of the things or challenges that you have. A trusted friend or a close family member, someone that you can talk through how you're feeling as well is a great option. Something that's free and you can do to deal with that. I mentioned before as well, like the deep breathing exercises as a healthy way to do to cope as well. So I think that looking at those things, and also if you recognize that there is this pattern or there is this kind of mindset that you have that is maybe causing you to feel a little more stress, looking for like positive affirmations that speak to that stress or speak to the thing that is maybe discouraging you or something along those lines. It makes a difference. And I encourage people to use as many senses as you can because that can help for you to remember it and it come to the forefront of your mind. So when I say use different senses, so if you find a positive affirmation, you should look at it, write it, speak it, hear it, listen to it. And so having that positive, those positive words seeping into your mind, into your heart, and everything, it can help to be able to move past maybe those thoughts that kind of trigger that feeling of stress or trigger that feeling of feeling down or whatever it is that you may be experiencing. So I think those are a few options that I think can be really helpful, as well as just like stretching, even in your body, doing yoga. Those types of things help to relax your body because our emotions they impact our body and they rest even in places within our body. So if you're able to even sit still and pay attention to what part of my body is feeling tense and being intentional about focusing in that area and helping to release some of the tension in whatever part of your body you feel that tension can make a world of difference when you're feeling stressed and help you to get into a space to be able to write or talk with someone or do whatever that next step looks like for you.
No, all those are really good. My
Mhm.
therapist said to me, journaling is like a free form of therapy. So
Yes.
that I didn't go see her. She's like, make sure you journal because
Uh-huh.
no, I think
Yeah.
those are all great tips because like you said earlier, this is part of our life and giving space and leaning into the feeling of stress or overwhelm, not to let it overcome you, but definitely leaning in to know that that is a real feeling. I think that's so impressive too. I try to let my kids look at a feelings wheel to identify.
Mhm.
There's so many feelings you can have, and you can have
Yes.
multiple feelings at one time. So I think
Mhm.
that's really important. So thank you so much. That has been really helpful. Before we go, though, I want you to give us one last thing you want to leave us with, and then how can anyone on the who's tuning in can contact you?
Oh, okay, no problem. So I guess the one thing or two things that I'll leave you with again is the increased awareness and intentional behaviors. I think that is at the core of everything that I've said. Being aware of where you are and doing things to address wherever you are. That is so important. And I feel like that's the main key when it comes to managing your mental health. So you can find me or contact me. I am on Facebook and Instagram at Restore UCC. My website is www.restoreyoucounseling.com.
Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. We really appreciate you taking the time out for us. And for those tuning in, thank you. Leave us a comment and let us know just how much this has helped you. And we hope that you do not just listen to this, that you go back and you take these tools because, getting your mental health and making that a priority will help you in your career.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Channing. And again, we'll make sure that all the resources that you provided, we'll make sure that they are listed at the bottom of this video. So goodbye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.